Beneath West Yorkshire's rolling moors and historic mills lie secrets that refuse to rest. Join us as we explore 11 terrifying haunted places where chilling legends and restless spirits still linger. Wainhouse Tower. Rising more than 250 feet above the Calder Valley, Wainhouse Tower dominates the Halifax skyline. By day, it is a proud Victorian landmark, a slender octagonal chimney turned into a grand folly built in the 1870s to display the wealth and engineering ambition of its creator industrialist, John Wainhouse. From its viewing platform, visitors can see the moors rolling out for miles. Yet when night settles and mist drifts across the valley, the tower's story darkens into legend. Locals speak of a weeping woman who lingers at the base of the tower. Sometimes she is only heard her soft sobs rising with the evening wind. On rare nights, she is seen a shadowy figure in a long dark cloak head, bowed, who seems to murmur the chilling phrase, "They done for him," before fading into the stonework. No one knows whom she mourns. Some say she grieves a stonemason who fell to his death during construction. Others whisper of a secret lover who met a violent end beneath the tower's foundations. Eyewitness accounts add to the unease. A nighttime photographer once reported that every time he adjusted his camera, he felt a sudden pull on his coat, though the night was calm. Another visitor climbing the steps alone described hearing footfalls echoing behind him that stopped whenever he turned. At the summit, he found the heavy door swinging gently as if touched by an unseen hand, though the air above the valley was perfectly still. Even skeptics admit that the tower holds an unusual atmosphere after dark. The surrounding woodland muffles sound, and the narrow staircase seems to tighten around those who climb it. Some claim that the stone itself carries the memory of grief, a silent witness to loss that no record can fully explain. Today, Wainhouse Tower remains a striking monument and a favorite daytime viewpoint. Yet as dusk gathers and the first stars appear, the boundary between history and haunting grows thin. The quiet cry of the woman and her cryptic words still seem to ride the night air, inviting those who listen to wonder whose tragedy echoes through the stone. East Riddlesden Hall. Set beside the River Aire, East Riddlesden Hall is a fine 17th century manor built for wealthy cloth merchants. By day, its mellow stone and quiet gardens tell of domestic comfort and success. Yet when the sun slips behind the Pennine Hills, this house reveals a past steeped in jealousy, violence, and restless spirits. The most famous story is of a murderous betrayal. One version speaks of a wool merchant who was killed by his own butler for gold. Another of a jealous husband who walled up his wife's lover alive and left his wife to starve behind locked doors. Visitors describe a phantom murderer who peers through a high stair window or lingers near the reception room, his outline dim but his intent clear. But he is not alone. A grey lady wanders the hall, searching endlessly for her lost beloved. On the porch, a blue girl is said to weep in the moonlight, while a white lady is believed to haunt the pond where she drowned. Even children's voices have been heard singing the eerie rhyme, "Ring-a-ring-a roses," a melody that chills the still night air. Stranger happenings occur inside. At midnight on New Year's Eve, a wooden cradle rocks by itself. Lights flicker on in empty rooms, small objects tumble from shelves, and the scent of frankincense drifts suddenly through corridors. Visitors have felt an invisible shove on the staircase or a sharp tug at their clothes while no one is near. A former night watchman once told of closing the main doors when a cold breath swept past him and a quiet sob echoed through the hall. Moments later, he heard what he described as soft, deliberate footsteps climbing where no living foot could tread. Today, East Riddlesden Hall is cared for by the National Trust and welcomes curious guests. Yet when the last staff leave and darkness presses in from the river, it is easy to believe the house remembers every act of passion and cruelty. The Grey Lady, the Blue Girl, and the Silent Murderer remain part of its very fabric, their sorrow and anger woven into the stones, ensuring that East Riddlesden Hall will never truly rest. The Bradford Playhouse, hidden among the brick canyons of Little Germany, the Bradford Playhouse is a jewel of Edwardian theatre. By day, its red brick facade and bright foyer welcome performers and families. But as the curtain falls and the audience drifts into the night, this playhouse changes character as though another cast takes the stage. Staff and late-night actors tell of a lady in an elegant gown who appears when the dress circle is empty. She is often seen seated silently in seat H18, her eyes fixed on the darkened stage, as if watching a play no one else can see. Equally unsettling is the figure of a man in a tall top hat, sometimes visible only from the waist up, his legs fading into nothing. He drifts through the foyer with a faint rustle of silk and a smell of old tobacco, then vanishes mid-stride. The theatre itself joins the performance. In the wardrobe, cold pockets of air appear and vanish without reason. In the bar, lights flicker and shadows twist into vague shapes that dance across the mirrors. One visitor described a sudden push in the back so strong that he nearly stumbled. Along the back stairs, fleeting silhouettes have been glimpsed, and in the rehearsal studio, soft raps and knockings on the doors and walls echo long after the building should be empty. Even sound plays tricks. Technicians hear the giggling of unseen children or the soft mew of a cat when no animals are inside. A caretaker, locking up late one evening, reported that each time he turned a key, he heard a quiet laugh as though an audience of phantoms approved. Today, the Bradford Playhouse still hosts lively performances and community events. Yet when the stage lights fade and the last encore dies away, the building seems to awaken for a different show, one of wandering spirits and echoes that refuse to leave. To stand alone beneath the dark proscenium is to feel that unseen eyes are watching, waiting for a curtain call that will never end. Royal and Ancient. On a quiet rise near Huddersfield stands the Royal and Ancient, a public house with stout stone walls and warm lights that promise comfort. Yet behind its inviting doors lingers a memory of sudden death and uneasy spirits. Centuries ago, a cotton factory opposite the site caught fire. As the blaze devoured the building, desperate workers tried to flee, but many perished in the smoke and heat. The dead were carried to the structure that once occupied the Royal and Ancient's ground. Neighbors say the land never forgot. Today, strange events still ripple through the pub. Glasses leap from shelves, shattering across the floor without cause. Light bulbs burst even when freshly fitted. Chairs and small ornaments shift position between rounds. A former landlord spoke of his dog barking furiously at an empty hallway, hackles raised as though someone invisible stood there. Spectral figures deepen the mystery. Patrons have glimpsed a lady in old-fashioned dress moving through the corridor, and a young girl sometimes appears beside her, only to dissolve as quickly as she came. One evening, a woman entered the ladies' toilets and found herself locked inside, though the latch moved freely from the outside and no human hand held it shut. Late-night staff have reported muffled voices in quiet corners and the unmistakable chill of a presence passing by. A barman once felt a sudden tug at his sleeve and turned to find the room empty, except for the smell of damp smoke. By day, the Royal and Ancient is a cheerful stop for travelers and locals. But when darkness gathers and the last customers leave, the pub seems to return to that night of fire and frantic flight. The unexplained crashes, the trapped guest, the ghostly woman and child, each hint that the spirits of those who died nearby may still seek recognition. To linger here after closing is to feel the weight of lives lost and a tragedy that refuses to fade. Bronte Parsonage Museum. At the edge of the moors, above Haworth, stands the Bronte Parsonage, a modest stone house where Charlotte Emily and Anne Bronte created some of the most haunting novels in English literature. Today, it is a museum that draws admirers from across the world. Yet when night falls and the last visitor departs, the quiet rooms seem to fill with a different presence, as if the sisters themselves still linger over their manuscripts. The most enduring legend belongs to Emily Bronte. Each year, on the 19th of December, the anniversary of her death, staff and locals speak of a shadowed figure in a dark dress seen moving through the garden or along the path that winds toward the waterfall and onto top with inns. Some claim to hear a faint rustle of skirts or the soft tap of boots on gravel when no living soul is there. Charlotte Bronte is also said to return her presence gentler but unmistakable. A volunteer once reported feeling a sudden brush of icy air beside Emily's old writing desk, followed by the faint scent of ink and old paper. In the upstairs rooms, lights flicker and settle as though someone has just passed through. Visitors on quiet afternoons sometimes sense soft footsteps pacing the hallway or glimpse a dim outline reflected in the glass of a cabinet. One evening, a caretaker locking the front door heard what he described as the closing of a book behind him, though every volume lay undisturbed. To walk the garden path at twilight is to feel the boundary between fiction and memory dissolve. Perhaps these are echoes of creative lives cut short, or perhaps the Brontes' intense spirits truly remain within their beloved parsonage. Either way, the house breathes with stories not yet finished, inviting those who listen to step softly as if entering a novel that still writes itself in the dark. The Paper Hall, standing quietly in the old heart of Bradford. The Paper Hall is one of the city's oldest surviving buildings. Built in the 17th century as a grand merchant's house, it now blends with modern offices and streets. Yet after sunset, when the city noise fades and moonlight pools on the cobblestones, the house seems to awaken to memories far darker than trade and family life. Local legend speaks of a murdered admiral, once an owner of the property. Some say he was killed in a nearby street. Others insist the crime took place within these very walls. His presence is known by the distinctive sound of uneven footsteps, a sharp thud, followed by a dull clunk, like a man walking with a wooden leg. Many late visitors have reported that eerie, deliberate rhythm approaching along empty corridors, then stopping suddenly at the threshold of a room. Equally unsettling are the spooky eyes that have been seen at night shining faintly from upper windows. Passers-by describe feeling watched, as though someone inside peers out from behind the curtains, only for the shapes to vanish when lights are turned on. One caretaker locking up late recounted how the heavy front door began to close of its own accord, a cold draft sweeping across the hall, though every window was shut. Another staff member heard faint knocking from an upper chamber where no one had been for years, followed by that unmistakable wooden thump descending the staircase. By day, the Paper Hall remains a quiet landmark, its timber and stone carefully preserved. Yet as darkness deepens and the streets empty, the building seems to echo with a past that will not rest. The uneven tread of the admiral, the glint of phantom eyes, and the sudden cold that sweeps the rooms hint at a story of violence an unfinished business. For those who pause outside after midnight, it feels as though the house itself leans closer, eager to share a secret sealed behind centuries of brick and oak. Holdsworth House Hotel and Restaurant. Hidden within quiet gardens on the northern edge of Halifax, Holdsworth House is a handsome Jacobean manor of mellow stone and gabled roofs. Built in the early 17th century, it now serves as an elegant hotel and restaurant. By daylight, it charms visitors with period rooms and fine dining. But when darkness falls and the last guests retire, this house is said to reveal a deeper, older life. The most whispered story concerns a white lady who drifts through the Ayrton room and sometimes into the restaurant itself. Witnesses describe a graceful figure in flowing pale garments, her face gentle but distant. She moves without sound, sometimes pausing, as though listening to music only she can hear before fading through a closed door. Staff setting tables for breakfast have glimpsed her near the grand fireplace, and guests report sudden chills or the faint scent of old roses lingering in her wake. Legends differ on her identity. Some believe she was a 17th century lady of the house whose heart was broken by betrayal. Others imagine a bride who died on the eve of her wedding, condemned to wander the place where joy turned to sorrow. Whatever her name, her presence has been noted for generations. A curious footnote to this haunting came in 1964 when George Harrison of the Beatles stayed at Holdsworth House. According to staff, he casually asked whether the manor was haunted, as if he too sensed the stillness of another world beyond the walls. Guests who linger late in the Ayrton room speak of cold currents that move against the grain of the house, of faint music, like distant strings, and of a feeling that someone invisible stands just behind them. Even skeptics admit that the atmosphere deepens at night, as if the house itself holds its breath. Today, Holdsworth House remains a celebrated hotel, but after midnight, its Jacobean halls seem to belong as much to memory as to the present. The silent white lady, forever poised between love and loss, ensures that every visit carries a quiet brush with the supernatural. The Thornhill. Tucked within the stone-built village of Calverley stands the Thornhill, a welcoming public house where fires crackle and glasses ring through the evening. Yet beneath its cheerful warmth lingers a quiet unease, as if the building remembers more than it cares to tell. One of the strangest reports came late one night when a pen flew across a room without warning, landing with a sharp tap on the wooden floor. Soon after, a glass shattered on the bar, though no one had touched it. At closing time, the staff sometimes find bar stools neatly stacked, though none recall arranging them. These playful, almost domestic disturbances might seem harmless, but they hint at an unseen hand at work. Patrons and employees speak of a woman in black, thought to be a cleaner from long ago. She has been glimpsed only once or twice, a quiet figure moving with deliberate purpose through the dim back rooms. In one well-told incident, a bathroom left in disarray during service was discovered later to be spotlessly tidy, though no staff member had been inside. Many believe this spectral housekeeper still takes pride in the inn's order, tidying in the silence of after hours. Yet not every sign is so gentle. A visitor standing alone near the bar late one evening felt a sudden drop in temperature and an unmistakable brush against the back of his coat. Turning quickly, he found the room empty, the only sound the low creak of an old timber beam. Others report faint knocks on locked doors and the brief scent of lavender, as if someone had just passed carrying fresh linen. By daylight, the Thornhill is a beloved local pub, alive with conversation and the warmth of Yorkshire hospitality. But when the last guests leave and silence settles over its thick stone walls, it becomes something older and quieter. The unseen cleaner, the unexplained movements, and the sudden cold that seeps from the past make each closing shift a subtle encounter with the other side, a reminder that even the coziest corners can keep their ghosts. Kershaw House, where the wooded valley of Ludenden narrows beside the River Calder, stands Kershaw House, an elegant early 18th century home once belonging to prosperous textile merchants. Today it is a smart hotel and restaurant, but behind its calm Georgian facade lie stories far older and stranger than its polite welcome suggests. Local legend first speaks of two doomed nuns said to have been executed for reasons now lost to history. Some tales claim they were hung-drawn and quartered, their final screams echoing through the valley. On moonless nights, travelers have reported a phantom coach racing from Ludenden Dean toward the house, its spectral horses steaming in silence, only to vanish at the gate where the sisters were supposedly put to death. Witnesses describe the crunch of invisible wheels on gravel and a sudden smell of candle wax, as if a funereal procession were replaying itself across the centuries. Other stories reach even deeper into the past. Some visitors have glimpsed phantoms in Roman dress along the old road nearby, while others speak of quiet Quaker figures kneeling in rooms long unused. Guests waking in the small hours have heard a heavy door open and close without sound of footsteps, or felt the air pressure change as if someone had just passed through. One evening, a night porter checking the dining room saw flickering lights along the staircase like lanterns swinging in an unseen hand. When he followed, he found the corridor empty, but smelled faint incense lingering in the cold air. A guest once described a sudden push on the shoulder near the landing, yet no living soul was behind him. Today, Kershaw House remains a place of hospitality and quiet refinement. But when the valley mist drifts over its stone facade and the last candles burn low, the centuries seem to fold together. The phantom coach, the executed nuns, and the silent Roman sentinels remind every late-night visitor that this house stands on ground where many histories overlap and where not all of them rest in peace. Fielden Hall. On the quiet edge of Todmorden stands Fielden Hall, a dignified 19th century building set among trees and rolling hills. Built by the Fielden family as a centre for education and community, it once echoed with the voices of children and teachers. Today, it serves local groups and events, but after nightfall, a different kind of gathering is said to begin. The heart of the haunting belongs to Sarah Jane Fielden, a beloved teacher whose devotion to the children of Todmorden never faded. Visitors speak of a gentle female figure in old-fashioned dress drifting through the central hall, her outline faintly lit as if by candlelight. Some have seen her pause by the classrooms, a soft smile on her face, before gliding soundlessly through a closed door. Equally unsettling is the sudden smell of carbolic disinfectant that sweeps through the corridors. Staff describe opening the building early in the morning to find the air sharp with the scent of old-school cleaners, though no such chemicals are used today. On quiet evenings, light footsteps echo along empty passages, and the soft creak of wooden desks seems to rise from rooms long converted to modern use. One caretaker locking up late felt a cool breeze and heard what he thought was a child's laugh coming from the assembly room. When he entered, the space was still and dark, the sound fading into silence. Another volunteer reported a faint pressure on his shoulder as he arranged chairs, like a kindly pat of encouragement from someone unseen. By day, Fielden Hall remains a cherished community space, alive with music, art, and conversation. Yet when the last visitor departs and the valley mist drapes the grounds, the hall seems to remember its first purpose. The quiet figure of Sarah Jane and the ghostly echoes of lessons past create an atmosphere at once gentle and uncanny, a reminder that dedication and love can leave an imprint as enduring as stone itself. Meanwood Park Hospital. At the northern edge of Leeds, hidden behind tall trees and winding lanes, lie the remains of Meanwood Park Hospital. Built in the 19th century as a mental health institution, it has stood abandoned for decades. Though the walls have cracked and ivy has spread across the courtyards, the atmosphere suggests that not everything has left. Visitors often speak of a sudden unnatural silence when they enter the grounds, as if the woodland itself is holding its breath. More unsettling are reports of footsteps crunching on gravel that no longer exists, a steady tread that stops the moment one turns to look. One evening, a photographer captured a dark figure on film, tall, human-shaped, and standing on an empty path. Others describe faint sobs or low murmurs from sealed wards, and a sudden drift of antiseptic scent, as if the hospital's routines continue behind locked doors. Legends say that some former patients met lonely ends, and that their memories have soaked into the building's stone. A lone walker once felt a heavy pressure in the air, like a storm about to break, and sensed eyes watching from empty upper windows. Today, part of the grounds is open parkland, but the hospital buildings remain fenced and fading. After dusk, the trees gather mist, and every shadow lengthens, making it easy to believe that the past still moves within those walls. Whether these events are echoes of long years of suffering or something less easily named, the phantom footsteps and sudden cold ensure that Meanwood Park Hospital is far more than an abandoned ruin. West Yorkshire's haunted places still murmur in the dark. Like, share, and subscribe to Creepy Experience, and share in the comments if you've ever felt their lingering chill.